People are going to say I'm difficult to work for. And I'll say 100%. Absolutely, I'm fucking difficult to work for because I demand the best of you, because I demand the best of myself. And if you're not going to live up to that, you could go somewhere else. But if you do, you're going to make a lot of money here. Welcome to the Spinoso Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Spinoso, and my experience and expertise is in scaling all types of medical businesses to 7, 8, and 9 figures. I'm sharing my journey with you. This isn't a podcast telling you you should do this. I'm just telling you how I did this. And I want to help you build your business, take ownership of your life, and become a better leader at home and at work. And as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Miss Amanda May. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fantastic.
I feel like it's been
As
forever
always.
since we actually recorded, even though we do this monthly.
Yeah, it does feel like a long time. You're right. A lot has happened since the last time we recorded.
I can't even remember.
No,
Has
where
there
do we
been a lot that
begin?
has happened?
I mean, it always feels like there's a
always
lot.
there's always a fucking lot that's happened every single month. There's a ton of shit that's happened.
Well, today we're going to talk about love. Well, fear or love, which motivates your team more? This is going to be a great topic. And, you know, like the quote from The Office, Michael Scott, would you rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
It's a great one. I love that.
Yeah. So in that, the lightness of that, it's like, how do you have a supporting and encouraging environment, but also one where you can be tough and demanding when needed to be, and the balance of fear or love in leadership, and which one's more effective for motivating your team?
Absolutely. This is a good one. Absolutely love this because everybody's always like, oh, you got to love your team. And I love my team, but they also have to respect you 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of where the fear comes in, right? So today we're going to talk about that core leadership dilemma to lead with fear or love. And we've all seen the intimidating boss who drives results by pushing people really hard. But we've also seen the leader that wins hearts and the loyalty and being really loved in the process. So, Alex, you have built multiple successful companies. What's your perspective on which approach is more effective when getting the best out of your team?
Well, there's a great phrase that I want to kind of set the tone of this podcast with, and it's from a movie called I think it's called The Bronx Tale, and it's about old school Italian gangsters. And he asked that question. One of the protagonists asked the question of the head mobster in this movie. Would you rather be loved or would you rather be feared? And he responds, feared, because fear gets you respect, but it's good to be feared and not hated. So there's a huge difference between love and fear. Those are two different things. And it's funny that we're talking about this because they're not the two opposite ends of the coin. There's love and hate. Those are two opposite ends of the coin. But love and fear, I don't think are two opposite ends of the coin at all. Growing up, we fear our parents. Maybe we fear getting a spanking or fear getting yelled at or fear getting reprimanded, our iPad taken away, our phone taken away, things like that. But that doesn't mean we love them less. Or at least I didn't with my parents. But I feared my parents growing up, 100%. Just like my kids should fear me and their mom. Period. It's a respect thing. But there's a difference between 100% fear and hatred. You can be feared and still be loved. And I think that's what leaders and business owners really forget, is that that's a huge part of it. You can be feared 100% and still be loved.
The first point you made when we were talking about this earlier is that love in leadership means respect. Can you explain why respect is foundational in your team? And even if you're taking a love approach versus, let's say, a fear one?
When I graduated from residency, I worked in CDCR, California Department of Corrections, and it was, prison. I worked on a yard of about 2,000 inmates, and I was the only doctor on the yard. And the yard was filled with like the baddest of the bad boys. These are the guys that are the arsonists, the murderers, armed robberies, things like that. And the crazy thing about working in the prison is that I never felt safer than working in the prison.
Mm.
And, most people are like, oh, is the prison is scary and whatever. And I was like, no, it really wasn't, because the prison system is a respect system. If you gave respect, you got respect. And nowadays there's the phrase out there, oh, you should respect your elders. No, not if Grandpa Sanchez is a fucking dickhead. I ain't going to give him any respect, period. That's just how it is. And that's how I grew up in an Italian Puerto Rican family. You give respect, you get respect. You don't give respect, I'm going to pop you in the fucking mouth, period. Like, I don't care if you're 75. Don't fucking talk shit, period. And so the prison was like that, where it's like you give respect, you get respect. And when it comes to your staff, like, true love is not that unconditional love. And I hate that people say this. I unconditionally love, like, my kids. If your kid was a fucking murderer, you think you'd love them? It would be, I probably wouldn't for my kids. If they were out murdering people or hurting a bunch of people, I probably would lose love for that kid. Statistics show I've got 4 of them. One of them is probably going to be a murderer. or a cocaine dealer. But we'll find out. We're trying not to develop those types of kids. But you can't say love is unconditional. The only unconditional love is like a fucking dog, period. And that being said, it's the same with your staff, where, like, at its core, you have to have love for them, but it's built off respect. Loving them doesn't mean that they get to show up and do whatever the fuck they want. They get to be lazy. And that is included with family. I have a business partner, and we were talking about how, and he was lamenting about how the staff that we have right now in one of our companies is kind of like lazy and just kind of doing their own thing. And the problem was that at the beginning, like any business, you just try and hire who you can, family, friends, you're figuring it out. But we had no standards of excellence. There were no core values that were put in place. There were no conversations up front of how difficult or how much work it would be to be at this place, to work at this business. And so now they're just asking for raises for doing nothing over the top. They're just like, oh, I've been here because I've been here for 6 months, I should get a raise, sort of thing. Doing nothing to deserve that. And without respect, like, love can feel soft or weak, but it's telling those employees that, hey, we have really high standards here at Genesis. We work really hard. And as a result of that, you get paid really well. And we do have fun. We have the ability, you have corporate events, you have your own team events and team outings. So respect and using those core values allows you to set boundaries to hold your team to the highest level of performance. And you're creating a supporting and caring environment. I tell people in our clinic, in our company, when I was hiring, hey, we're going to push you to the limit. We're going to push you to your edge. And trust me when I say you're going to feel like you're running off the edge of a cliff. But I'm going to be like Holden Caulfield, catcher in the rye, at the end of the rye, making sure I grab you before you fall to your death off the cliff. But that's what I want you to do. I want you to run towards the cliff and push as hard as you can. And I want you to be a better person for it. Because sometimes people will be like, well, we treat people like family here. And most of the time, family members let each other get away with whatever fuck all they want. And it's terrible. Like, here we're a family, but we're a family that pushes you to be the best that you could possibly be in the family. And family doesn't mean we accept you for who you are. I don't care. Like, and that might sound rude or terrible. I'm not telling people to, change their tattoos or change their face or dye their hair. That's not the type of acceptance I'm saying. The type of acceptance I'm saying is accept you for who you are in terms of if you don't want to do this, or if you're just like, nah, like, I'm okay being who I am right now. I don't want to grow. It's one of our core values. I want you to improve. I want you to be better. I want my staff to be better. And I surround myself with people who want to be better. Now, sometimes not everybody will live up to that, but that's our culture and that's how we put it on our staff. And we tell them up front, this is a difficult job. And there's a great story from the ex vice president of Disney. His name is Lee Cockrell. He says when they were hiring for Disney while he was there, they used to tell him how hard it was going to be. It might be the happiest place on earth, but you're working long hours, 12 to 14-hour shifts. You're outside all day in any weather, does not matter. You have to have a smile on your face all the time. Period. Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You have to always talk in a kind manner, no matter what the client or the Disneyland, patrons are saying or telling you all the time. And you have to make sure that the children that are there are always smiling, no matter what. I mean, they tell them up front, it's going to be a really fucking hard job. And guess what? It was still voted one of the best places to work. It was still voted like by the people who work there. They felt like they were really doing something important.
Hmm.
And that was based out of love for their staff that, hey, this is what we do here. And this is our level of customer service. This is our standards. And we're not going to bend or break them for you because you feel like you need to be accepted for the way you are. It does not count.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean coddling.
No.
It's like tough love, love, but with a level of excellence associated with it. I've heard that people will naturally rise to whatever expectation you have of them. And so it's like those expectations of excellence, people are going to rise to the occasion because they want to. I think people genuinely want to do really good at their jobs. And so when you have that and then they, I guess, fear or respect you in the process, they also want to show up their best for the company and for the boss or whoever they're answering to.
Yeah.
So.
And CEOs get a bad rap. Leaders will always get a bad rap. And if you're going to build a giant, successful company, you better have it in your head that sometimes people will fucking hate you. And they might talk crap about you and they might spread lies about you. Get fucking used to it. Period. You're going to have to harden up yourself because that's what it takes. And if you watch any CNN special or 60-minute special and they talk to Elon Musk or Donald Trump or Steve Jobs when he was alive or the CEO of NVIDIA, Huang, they always want to bring up what their employees or people who have worked for them say. And it's always negative shit. It's always that he was difficult to work for and uncompromising and, pushed people to beyond their limits, etc. And so I started to realize in building Genesis and how we're growing and stuff, I try and and I'm a lot different now. I try and be as loving as possible, but I also realize that if I'm the person always holding people's feet to the fire, that's just going to be the position that I have to be in. That's just it. People are going to say I'm difficult to work for. And I'll say 100%. Absolutely, I'm fucking difficult to work for because I demand the best of you, because I demand the best of myself. And if you're not going to live up to that, you could go somewhere else. But if you do, you're going to make a lot of money here and you have the opportunity to make a lot of money here. And so it's, as a CEO, and you're going to build a bigger and bigger business, you have to realize that you're not these people's friends. You're not these people's friends, but you have to care about them and love them in a way that makes them better people, gives them more money, helps them improve their lives and take care of their children. And so when we come down and there's no good cop, bad cop type of role, and Brent's a total good cop, compared to me, sometimes we're on the same wavelength. You have to be on the same wavelength with pushing people, and you both got to be bad cops. And that's just what it is. Steve Jobs had a late policy where he fired anybody at the executive level that was 1 minute late. You were 1 minute late any day, once, you were fired. You're like, that's crazy. Okay, the people that say that's crazy are the ones who have never built a fucking business in their lives, ever. They've been employees and will be employees their entire fucking lives. That type of, maniacal, uh, just passion and focus on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build and your standards are what you need to get to that next level. They're what you need to build a great company. And you guys listening need to understand that because you're obsessed about it. That's why you'll win.
Yeah, and I wanna go back and touch on something a little bit that you were talking about is you have people that hate you or talk bad about you or, like, spread rumors or lies, and let's talk about that. What happens there? Because when those people are in your company, I think that's a good time to actually have, like, the fear aspect involved because when you let go of people that are like that, I think it makes the rest of the company like, hold on a second. There's a healthy level of fear,
Yeah.
like you would get if you were getting in trouble from your parents. If you see your sister get in trouble for something, you're gonna be a little bit like, I maybe should not do that, and it's the same level, I think, in business where you have to handle those situations where people know they cannot walk all over you and that there is a healthy sense of fear if you have to let people go because other people are going to be watching that.
Right. Well, misery loves company, and people are entropic, and entropy is just the natural disaster that people have. You start with a very clean desk, and then it's got a couple more pieces of paper on it, and then it's got maybe a can of soda on it, and then you have some more pens on it, and now it's just like a desk that's covered in shit. I'm looking at my desk. I know where everything else, but it's a fucking disaster. And we're entropic, and so we love negativity and crap like that. You just kind of love it. That's why these shows of people's lives that are just in disaster, that's why they do so well. It's like, holy crap, look at how crappy that person's life is. That is entertaining as fuck. The reason why it's important for you to eliminate those people is, a single drop of oil can ruin an entire tanker of fresh water. You want everybody to know that you are serious about your culture and you're serious about them being better. And if people want to talk shit, they can talk shit all they want, just not in our company. They can see the door. You don't want, and I'm not talking about people bringing ideas up or people trying to improve the company. We have open door policy. We like innovation. We want people to improve. What I'm talking about is the undermining type of employee that doesn't bring up anything to the leaders, doesn't bring anything up to Brent and I, or you or Sean, part of HR. They're the ones who just talk to other people in the company at their level or below their level, talking shit about the
Mm.
executives or saying, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with this, but never bringing it to us and coming up with a solution or ideas to fix it. So, just like in your business, you should have an open door policy. You should have an ability for people to come and provide ideas and suggestions and changes, and you have that open discussion. But you should never tolerate somebody talking bad about you at the leadership role or other employees to other employees. Period. It should not go lateral. It should always go up. Always. And if you don't like the leader in your business and you're talking shit about him,
Mm.
go fucking somewhere else. And we'll make sure you go somewhere else. Period. Because we'll find out about it. That's just the crazy thing is that everybody fucking finds out about it. There's too many people in our business. There's too many people in most businesses where somebody will rat on you saying, hey, so and so is saying this about you. And it's just you meet that difficult conversation head on. It's a hard conversation. Hey, did you say this? Yes or no? Because I know you did. So if you say no, that's against integrity. If you say yes, we can figure out why. And if you feel like you still need to be here or if I even want you here at that point. And yes, you have to have that fear. Every once in a while, the lion has to get up and show everybody that he's still king of the fucking jungle.
Yeah. Well, you brought up Steve Jobs a minute ago, and so he was known for being demanding, but not being lovable.
Yeah.
How do you I mean, he's built an incredibly successful company. How do you think he got away with that?
Because of the incredibly successful company. Because he made 300 plus multi-millionaires, when they went public, and still to this day, Apple has grown, people that have survived him. Obviously, he died of cancer, but people that have survived him that were in the Steve Jobs era have grown their income, have grown their stock. It's grown and split and grown and split and grown and split. And it's something ridiculous. If you put $10,000 in Apple in the early 2000s, you'd have millions and millions of dollars today.
Wow.
And so I started to think about the same thing, and you got to have a little bit chip on your shoulder. I get it. And this might sound like asshole-ish, but look, I am extremely demanding, but I may not be fucking lovable either. But guess what? I don't have to be lovable because I built a $100 million business. You don't have to fucking love me. I don't care what you think of me, because what we've done is proof that it fucking works. And there are a bunch of people that love what we're doing, and we love our staff and they want to be a part of it, etc. It's usually always new people that have some sort of attitude problem. But again, that's part of our hiring process, and we've weeded that out and got better and better and better about that. But yeah, Steve Jobs, everybody says he was an asshole, but people are still talking about Steve Jobs today. And most people, when they die, nobody talks about them,
Hmm.
period. They talk about how he changed the world. They talk about how he changed Apple. They talk about how he left Apple and Apple almost went bankrupt and they asked him back. They still talk about Steve Jobs posthumously and all the great or negative things he did. And guess what? Whether you're a hero or whether you're a villain, if they're still talking about you after your death, you did something to change the world, period.
And most people are using some sort of Apple product today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's expanding and growing, and people still the Apple reveals and how crazy those are now is all a result of Steve and his ability to present. And you can argue the other Steve, Wozniak, obviously was the brains and the one who developed everything and created all the programming and stuff like that. But Steve couldn't speak on stage and sell a product to save his life. I mean, I've met Steve in person and I've listened to him talk, and he's super joyous. Like, the guy is like Santa Claus. He gets giddy talking about electronics and science and all this stuff. And he's got amazing stories, but he goes off on a fucking tangent and he's not inspirational at all in person. So it's like, I can understand why he didn't speak on stage, because he wouldn't have fucking sold any products. Steve did. So if I'm going to speak on stage and speak about our products and let Brent be the brains behind all of it, then so be it. That's my position in the company, period. If I'm going to drive the culture, drive the excellence, and drive the branding from stage, that's what I like to do. That's what I'll do.
You're so good at it too. You recently, little side note, you recently spoke at the BTL.
Yeah.
Want to make sure I'm not saying
Not
BLT. Kind of hungry. It's almost lunchtime.
Right, it is.
You just spoke there, and I would imagine that went smashingly well based off the wigs that you wore.
Absolutely.
And so when you think about inspiring people from stage, what do you think? This is a total bonus tip from this podcast. What's the number one thing that inspires people?
Showing them what could be, and at the same time, showing them that you're a real fucking human being. And I think that's the biggest compliment, as well as, it's not a critique, but a response where I listen to what people are saying after I get off stage, or the other BTL members, they come and talk to me and they tell me things that the attendees say about it. And the overwhelming majority have said he's just like a real person. Because a lot of times when you get up on stage, you'll pretend or you'll say something or you'll act like you're better than everybody else. And we see this in entrepreneur space all the time. I've done this many dollars and this much, and I got this degree and that degree, and I'm this awesome, and you can't do what I do.
Mm.
And people are like, well, okay, how am I supposed to be? You can't inspire somebody by telling them you've got all these great accolades and you had no problems getting it, because they're going to be like, well, fuck, I can't do that. Like I got all these problems over here. I can't get to this point. So when I'm on stage, we talk about, living in a crack house with my wife and having zero money and putting half of my life savings into a mastermind and driving around in a piece of shit, Scion FRS, and doing all the normal, quote unquote, negative, crappy parts of being an entrepreneur. And then the end result of sacrificing and doing all those things. So connecting those. And if you're on stage, that's what you should be doing. Nobody cares about how fucking awesome you are. I hate to say it. They fucking don't. They care about learning how you got to being how awesome you are. How did you get there? Just like this podcast, this isn't telling you what you should do. I'm just telling you how I did it. And you should be doing that on stage too. You should be telling people, this is how I did it. This is how I solved this problem. And this is how I got to where I am today. Because that's going to help way more people than just telling people, I do now this, and this. It's the fucking greatest. People like to post over and over and over and see it reposted. The photo of Jeff Bezos sitting at his Amazon desk with his wood spray painted Amazon sign in his office. They post it over and over and over. That connects to them. People are living in that shit. Entrepreneurs have lived through that shit. They don't post, and then they post Jeff Bezos on his yacht and his super buffness and his 20, 30 year younger, girlfriend. Like, they post both sides, but people love that first part. And when you're on stage, don't forget that first part. Don't forget the cardboard box with a black sheet you had to use as your front desk. That was a colleague of mine who was telling me that. And I said, fucking say that on stage, man. People will connect to that because they've gone through it. That's what they're doing either right now or just a few years ago.
Yeah. That relatability is also very important when it comes to creating that love and respect culture in your business. And you do that very well within the Genesis team. And that's why there is a healthy level of fear, but there's so much respect for what you do, I think, with our teams, because you are that relatable, not just on stage, but also in the company itself. At our meetings, our corporate meetings, you always start out with something fun, either making fun of Brent for where he started out 10, 15 years ago, or, something that has happened in your life. And so that level of inspiration is, that's lasting. And that's what people are going to look forward to when it comes to being inspired to stay with the company, see the company grow, and go to the next level. And that's different. There's different types of love, and all of them matter. And so let's unpack a little bit of, the different types of love in leadership, and that it's not just about being nice all the time, but breaking down more about what you mean about the love, the healthy love, respect, relationship that comes with that.
Yeah. When you're a leader, being a leader is just like parenting. You have to, dote on your child and love your child and give them hugs and kisses. Obviously, don't be doing that to your employees, please God. Sometimes, but at opposite times, you got to whap them on the butt and say, hey, look, you should not do that. That's not how we act. That's not how we are, period. And so the whole concept of gentle parenting doesn't work as a leader as well. You can't be like, tell me about your feelings, because a kid doesn't fucking get it. And a lot of times adults don't fucking get it either. And they don't want to fucking talk about their feelings. So sometimes you just got to tell them, hey, look, this is how it's going to be because of our core value, and always tie it back to a core value, and giving them that tough love It's actually preparing them for the real world. It's preparing them to lose. I fucking hate participation trophies for kids. I hate them because they become adults. Those kids become adults that like they think they should be rewarded for just doing their job every single day, or they should be doted on or celebrated for taking a shit at work. Like, would that be awesome? Yeah, it might be awesome actually. Getting a clap because I clap for my kids
I
when they
was
poop.
gonna say
Yeah,
I clap for Ellie every
you
time
clap for
she
Ellie. Yeah,
poops.
good job, man. You pooped. Here we go. But you can't always shield your kids from the consequences of their actions. Like, unless they're gonna kill themselves, falling off of I don't know, the second story of your house or not down the stairs or shit like that. If they're playing with a toy and they hurt themselves, hey, that's a lesson. If they're jumping off the couch, like our kids, they jump off the couch. I let them jump off the couch until they hurt themselves, and I was like, hey, like, pay attention next time, or
Mhm.
that's what you get. You have to learn that there are consequences. It's the same thing as an adult. You can't just always swoop in and save somebody every single time. Now, if there's a mistake that's going to happen in the medical field where you're actually going to harm somebody, yes, 100% you should be stepping in. But if you fire a staff member every time they're going to make a mistake, then you're going to have zero fucking staff members.
Mhm.
Always. So you always have to realize that your staff members are going to make mistakes. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. So having that culture of it's okay to make mistakes. And there's a great Disney movie. If you have kids, you should definitely watch it. It's called The Robinsons. And in that, the kid, he tries to fix something and he fails at it. Like there's a little like peanut butter jelly gun and it blows up. And the rest of the family, the Robinsons, are actually sitting there and they watch this kid try and fix it. It explodes in his face, explodes peanut butter jelly everywhere, all over them. And he immediately says, "Oh, I'm sorry." And they all like cheer. They're all like, "Yeah, that's fucking awesome." They didn't cuss. It's a Disney movie. We watched Italian Disney movies in our house. Yeah, fucking awesome. But they all cheer him on and they say, "Good job." And he's like, "What do you mean, good job?" He's like, "Well, you failed. You learned something. You learned that that's not the way to fix it, right?" And so it was a mindset thing
Mm.
that they had, and it's a great movie, but it's always a phrase that Walt used to say too, and that movie was created kind of around one of Walt's visions, is that around here, and he said the phrase, "Around here we don't look back for long. We don't look at the past. We always fail forward."
Mm.
So when you're failing, you should be consistently failing forward, which again, innovation, that was born in our Genesis core values, is that we know we're going to fail and we embrace it. And the more that we fail, the more that we learn. Amazon has a 20% like fail bank account. 20% of what they spend their money on, they know that it has a high risk of failing because they're trying new things, they're innovating, they're buying new companies, etc. But they built that into their company. Now, obviously, as you get bigger and bigger and bigger and better, and you've got more lawyers looking into things and more people looking at deals, the failure rate has lowered exponentially, but they still spend that 20% on focusing on failure, focusing on things that are pushing the envelope
Mm.
and growing. And I think good businesses do that. And we try that a lot too. Brent and I have failed over and over and over. And when we talk to some business owners and they're like, well, I spent $1,000 and it didn't work. It's like, okay, Brent and I are spending like $100,000 of our own money every month failing. We've lost millions of dollars since starting our company. Millions of dollars each one of us have lost just trying to push the envelope, trying to improve the systems, trying to get better. And it's not like we don't complain about it. Nobody fucking knows that. We're just like, that didn't fucking work. Let's try this instead. Because that's what you have to do. You have to innovate. And innovation in a big company, it takes money. You have to spend money on that innovation and trying to improve yourself. But again, going back to the staff and making sure that they understand the different types of love is that we usually have a rule. When the staff is struggling and they're having a hard time, we go in there and we coddle them and we try and improve them. We try and get them better. When the staff is hot and they're killing it, that's when you start to get cocky. That's when anybody starts to get cocky. So that's when you start to lay into them and push them to the next level. That way you're not kicking a horse when it's already down, and you're pushing people when they're at their top or they think they're at their top, you're pushing them beyond their limits.
Mm.
So that's a good trick that I've learned that I think other people can learn too. And on top of that, making sure you're filling up their cups. And I'm guilty of not doing this enough. Now, Brent's guilty. We're all guilty of not doing this enough, is telling people that they're doing a good job. Hey, that was a great job. Or, hey, you should be proud of yourself. Or, hey, giving them that giddy up, that addy up that's like, hey, you did a good job. I congratulate you. And we have shout outs in our company culture. We have shout outs in our workplace for Meta, where everybody communicates with each other. We have shout outs, but I should be doing more and more shout outs. The more you can fill up somebody's cup, the more you can obviously take a little bit out of that cup if you have to redirect them or reprimand them or say, hey, we need to be better here.
Yeah. That's knowing when to be tough and knowing when to be compassionate. And when you're talking about not coddling people, like really figuring out what's going on when somebody's down, not kicking them when they're down, that's like a time to be compassionate so that you can hopefully redirect them, get them back on a trajectory of growth within their own personal life or within the company, ultimately with the goal of the company. Because we're not necessarily here to fix everybody's problems, but caring and being compassionate about what they're going through, that is a time where you can lead with love. And it does make a really big difference because people remember that. One of the things that I remember when I moved here, so I was making really good money. I had my own business, self-sustaining, like doing really well for myself, and decided to give all that up and come to Texas, and used the whole like first 8-10 months I was here, used a lot of the savings, used savings to move here, kind of let go of an entire business that was providing my life and not really thinking about, well, what happens if something doesn't pick up fast enough when I get there? I just came with a lot of hope and like belief that things were going to be amazing. And belief in Genesis. And that was a big part of the move. But I remember when that all turned upside down and I didn't have money to pay rent. And I'm like, I haven't not had money to pay my rent since I was like 16 and moved out of my mom's house. Like, what is happening, you know? And coming to you guys and being like, can I get paid early? Like, I just need it a few days sooner so that I, don't end up with all these extra fees and things. And until I figure out how to get this ball rolling here in Texas, because that year I think I made a third of what I had been making in my own company. But believing in the dream and the vision of Genesis and where we're going. And you guys were great. I mean, you weren't like, well, that was dumb. Well, what'd you buy that you shouldn't have bought, or whatever could have been said. You guys were like, let's help. Like, we're here for you. Like, let's do what we can. And, and then from there, it was like, well, what other roles can I take on? What other responsibilities can I take on? How can I make more money and pick up kind of a new career on this end of it because I had let go of that career. So it was like, how does that transition work? And, at a time where things felt very unstable, it would have been awful if you guys were like, well, too bad. Sucks for you. Yeah. Glad you're along for the journey, but you're in it alone, You guys came in and were really compassionate about that. And because of that, there definitely was like I got to figure this out fast. I'm not going to go through another month of this. Like, I got a few weeks to figure out how to turn this ship around and head the opposite direction. And so, having been somebody in the company that's had those situations happen, the compassion part, that's leading with love, I think has been, you have done that well. And because of that, there's a great deal of respect there for you and for Brent, not just because you came in and helped me out when I needed it, but just because of who you guys are And having seen both aspects of your leadership makes the respect like even more solid for who you are and what you're building. And so, just speaking from an actual team member standpoint, the value of that. And now it's like, I'll pretty much do anything you ask me to do. If you're like, hey, I need you to do this, okay, I'll figure out, it go top of priority and I'll make it happen,
Mhm.
And so um that's where I think you get people's uh what is that statement? Compliant, not compliance, commitment over compliance.
Mhm.
And that's where that comes into play as you start getting real commitment of your team members when you can lead with love, but do it with a healthy sense of fear. Because I also know if I were to slack off, as much as you guys like me, if I'm not doing my job and doing it well and growing and staying consistent with the core values of the company, I'm not gonna be here.
Mhm.
I know that. So it's like, I'm gonna keep my shit together,
Right. Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my little
And
personal story about the
I totally forgot about
conversation.
that, but thank you for bringing that up. No, it's really important. It's really important to take care of your staff and show that you care for them. And Brent and I have really never turned somebody down who's in a difficult situation, or needs something, and they brought it up to us. And again, they're worth it. And when I say they're worth it, the funny thing is that most people think that if they help somebody like you, or they help somebody in their business who really tries to work hard and just needs like a little bit extra, this month, or some help with something, etc. They think that if they do that, everybody's going to ask for a handout. And it's quite the opposite. Like, one, people you don't ask for it until they really, really need it. And two, the quote unquote assholes in your business who are just there 9 to 5 and don't give a shit and don't live your core values or anything like that, they're not the ones that are going to ask for help. They're not, because they know, like, I don't deserve it. Most humans
Mhm.
know that I don't deserve that help. Like, so I'm not even going to bring it up.
Mhm.
And so leaders, you have to get that out of your head that, your standards and people driving towards your standards and being towards your standards, uh, doesn't mean that people will never get in a difficult situation or never have to change their lives to be around you or to grow in the business. And you have to be there to help them. And Brent and I, this is why we literally haven't lost any executives in our company except for having to fire them,
Mm.
because, and for, integrity reasons. Other than that, we have paid for mortgages, we've paid for people to move, we've paid for people to get out of battered houses, we've paid car payments. Like, we've done a bunch of that stuff because we care about our people. And sometimes we've been there. We've had rough, incomes and $100 in the bank account, and it's like, fuck, how am I going to survive or eat next week? We don't want our staff to have to think about those things, because if they have to think about those things, then they're not focused on taking care of what they got to do at work to really succeed and get those bonuses, which is going to improve their lives. So we don't, for the most part, we don't turn people down who ask if they need a little bit of help or the opportunity to make more money or et cetera. There's always something that we will find them to do. And I think that is a huge part of being compassionate. But at the same point, when you're compassionate and you do that, Brent and I say, hey, let's do a budget. You might need to save better. Yeah. And this wasn't the case with you. Obviously, you're moving, you're changing your lives and everything. But with our staff, like, hey, let's do a budget. You might need to save better. Or sometimes we'll ask, hey, look, we see you post on Instagram. We're not fucking retarded. Like, you're out every weekend drinking and stuff like that. Unless you're drinking for free, those are like $12 to $18 drinks. Stop that. Like, it's not doing, one, that's not doing anything for your health. But two, sometimes you got to give up a little bit to save some money up,
Mhm.
And that's part of the, oh, well, you just can't get lazy because Brent and I are just going to support you. And we've had that conversations with people, and they respond really well.
Mm.
Every leader should be kicking their team's ass, getting them into gear. getting them ready. But at the same time, you shouldn't be kicking your team while they're down. It's not like you come to us and you say, "Hey, can I get paid early?" So we didn't, it's not a, well, where's your fucking spending habits? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You already feel like shit. You already are asking for help. It doesn't benefit you or anybody as a leader to question that person unless you know they have a history of being a dipshit, which again, the history of being a dipshit people are not fucking asking for help in your business. They aren't. They really are not.
Yeah. Do you think it's the truly ambitious entrepreneurs probably have a harder time on the compassionate form of love?
I think, well, I think it totally depends because if it's not natural for them and like, do I suggest they cultivate it? A good leader has emotional intelligence, period. And in the book Good to Great, there's a couple great quotes in here, but this really is a book about how good companies grew and became great, and a lot of it was that they had a healthy dose of uh standards and arguments at the executive level. So they would argue, they would go back and forth, they would provide data as to why, but all the companies essentially led up and down the ladder. So whether you are an executive or whether you're a front desk person, you can lead people above you and you can lead people below you. And what some of these great companies said, this is a good one. Your status and authority in Nucor, which is this company, comes from your leadership capabilities, not your position. If you don't like it, if you really feel that you need that class distinction, well, then this place is not the right place for you. And so we have that same kind of attitude at Genesis is that I don't care whether you're the nurse practitioner, the clinic director, the front desk staff, you're all going to respect each other. If you don't, get the fuck out. I don't care about leadership. Like, I expect you all to lead yourselves. That's accountability and to lead the people around you and to live our core values. And that doesn't matter whether you're the front desk staff or the manager or the CEO. You need to be leading yourselves in a way that's professional and lives our core values. So again, accountability is a huge part of that. And, you know, compassion comes in between those times because everybody is going to fuck up at one point or another. And so if they're living their core values, if they're holding themselves to a high standard, if they're helping lead up and down the ladder, then compassion comes in when that person fucks up or has an issue or needs something. That's when compassion comes in.
Mm.
If you got a dipshit who isn't living the core values, talks negatively about their staff, now isn't leading up and down the corporate ladder, and then wants you to be compassionate or help them out, it's like, well, number one, they probably have already been written up a few times and they should be out the door if they haven't changed their attitude. But number two, that's not when you're compassionate to people. That's when you tell them, like, look, these are the facts. The facts are you haven't lived our core values. The facts are you have this many write ups. The facts are you're not being a part of what we at Genesis stand for. And so that's when you don't need that compassion. That's when you shouldn't have that compassion. And as a leader, eh, I mean, it's really, I don't think you could be a good leader without having some sort of compassion. You can't. You absolutely cannot be a good leader. If you're hard and you're going to blow people out every single time and just yell and scream and never understand where they're coming from or have empathy in any way, you're never going to build a big business. And you're definitely not going to build one in the medical field that's 80% females. Good fucking luck.
Yeah, we have a lot of females, so you do have
Yeah.
to you have to balance that really well. So like, realizing that building rapport and affection is what drives the long-term motivation of your team, especially when you're dealing with women who are predominantly emotional beings. That's going to be really important. And at the end of the day, it seems like motivation, it just can't come from fear. It has to be important to build real affection and rapport with your teams. Um, So while we said love and fear are not opposite ends of the same coin, do you feel that coming from a loving place works better than coming from a fear-based place?
Yeah, those two are not mutually exclusive. So if your team doesn't have some sort of love or affection for you or what you're doing, then you're going to fail. They'll only work hard, or they'll only work really, not even hard, when you're in the room, when you're around. And a lot of people say that, well, they do really well when I'm there, and when I'm gone, they don't do well at all. It's like, well, because you haven't put a little bit of fear in them. That's important. And building that fear, you have to also build rapport with them. You have to be compassionate. You have to have love for them. And you have to show that you care for them, because when they feel that you genuinely care for them, then that's when they're going to respond in kind and want to be a part of what you're doing, because they're part of a place that is doing more. And that's one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the really the highest need that six of the six human needs is the need to be a part of something greater than yourself. And if you show that there's something greater than themselves that they're a part of and that you really care about them, then they're going to run through walls for you.
Mhm.
They're going to. And you know, love can motivate in ways that fear never can, because when they truly have love for what you're doing and love for the idea, you have compassion for them, and they know that you care and not just fear based, they are going to work harder for you. They're going to run through walls from you. That emotional connection is going to drive their performance and make them work harder for you. So you got to have both, but they are not mutually exclusive.
So there are leaders that think that if they get too close to their employees, that they lose authority, and that kind of sounds like what you're talking about with um, leaders, that their staff does well when they're there, but then doesn't do so well when they're not there. It's how so what kind of, for the listeners, how do you build the rapport and have the healthy fear, but also be close enough to the team member that you are building the compassion in the relationship without losing the authority?
Yeah. So be friendly, not friends. It's as simple as that. You, as a business owner, I hate to say it, as you grow, yes, you want to, and when you're small, you got to hang out with your staff and be with your staff. But as you grow in staff, you can't always be hanging out with them. You can't go on weekends with them and party and drink or any, you can't be a part of that. When you're elevated to a manager, it's the same way. You could be friendly and have respect and love for them, but you can't be friends anymore, because that's when lines get blurred always. It's not like sometimes, always. Lines get blurred. And like, I'm your friend. You shouldn't be acting like that way with me. You shouldn't hold me to a standard because I'm your friend. I get lower standards than everybody else. And you can build rapport and show that you care and love for somebody, but at the same time, that you're not best friends that are going to go out and hang out on the weekends with each other. And so I've never done that with my staff. Sometimes we have corporate dinners and events like that. But at the same time, I am friendly, but we're not friends, because I love and deeply care about them. I want them to do better. I want them to improve. But at the same time, as a leader, you cannot step into that role as, hey, we're on the same level, we're equals. You're not. There's the leaders, and then there is the teammates. And you have to make sure that there is that differentiation. And at the same time, if you always bend to the team will or what they want to do, or never hold them to standards, then you're going to have the inmates running the prison.
Mhm.
And it's not going to go well. It's not going to work out. It just isn't.
All right. So it's clear after our conversation that both love and fear do drive results. But it seems like love and compassion do have a little bit more of a longer lasting impact. What do you feel like is one piece of advice that you would give people that are wanting to balance fear and love, compassion and respect, and kind of the opposite sides of what we've been talking about during today's conversation?
I think upfront s- it's an upfront discussion on standards and what you're trying to do and your vision. Take relationships seriously and show your team that you love and that you care for them and you want them to win. But make sure your team also knows that you have super high standards so that they're deserving of that. When employees feel supported and they feel respected, they are going to work harder for you. They're going to run through walls for you. But at the same time, they'll also stay loyal in the long run because they know, hey, if I mess up, it's going to be okay. He's going to train me or teach me. However, if I do something that acts against integrity or is illegal or hurts people or undermines him or his staff or anybody else in this company, I'm gone. There's got to be both. And
Mm.
that's what a healthy business culture looks like. And that's what will grow into a massive company.
Awesome. We've talked about some really great stuff. If you got something out of this podcast, if you had value, please share it, like it, send it to a friend, comment, let us know what it was that you took away from this and how you're going to use this in your own business. And if you want more information from Dr. Alex, he's got some really incredible free courses on his website, dralexspinoso.com. And they are launching, him and his business partner, Von Kohler, incredible mindset coach, are launching a mastermind for medical entrepreneurs. So these are people who really take their medical business serious because there is a lot of people that don't really know what they're doing. But these are for the medical entrepreneurs that want to grow and scale their companies and make a ton of money and impact a ton of lives along the way. Where can they find that information on the mastermind that you're launching?
So you can go to joincharismatics.com. So charismatics is like charisma. So CharisMedx. So joincharismatics.com. And like I said, like you said, absolutely, we're starting a medical mastermind for business owners. We're going to talk about absolutely everything. This isn't just so you could learn procedures. We're going to talk a lot less about that, almost nothing on procedures, and more about the business of medicine and making money in medicine and growing a great culture and scaling and marketing and all the above.
Great. This has been an awesome podcast. We are looking forward to catching you all at the next one.